The first contact. The morning fog clung to the evergreen trees of Port Angeles like a burial shroud, obscuring the Olympic mountains that usually dominated the skyline. Detective Rowan Pierce stood at his office window, watching the mist swirl against the glass. His coffee had gone cold, forgotten amid the stack of missing persons reports that had taken over his desk. 10 years at the NSA analyzing patterns in global communications hadn't prepared him for what was happening in this quiet corner of Washington state. The first report came 3 weeks ago, a strange formation of drones hovering silently over the forest. He dismissed it as another UFO enthusiast's imagination running wild. But then the disappearances began. Detective Pierce. Officer Rachel Patel's voice drew his attention from the window. She stood in his doorway, clutching a tablet. We've got another one. Rowan set down his cold coffee. Where? Lake Crescent. Hikers found an empty campsite. Everything still there, tent, supplies, even a pot of coffee on a portable stove. But no sign of Thomas Weber, the camper. The familiar tension crept into Rowan's shoulders. Thomas Weber made 5 people vanished without a trace in 3 weeks. Each disappearance preceded by reports of silent, black drones. Any drone sightings? He asked, already knowing the answer. Rachel nodded. 3 different hikers reported seeing them last night. Same description as before, black, hexagonal, silent. They said the drones moved like nothing they'd ever seen before. Rowan grabbed his jacket. The wool was worn at the elbows, but it was comfortable, familiar. Like the weight of his service weapon against his hip. Let's go see what Mr. Weber left behind. The drive to Lake Crescent took 40 minutes, each bend in the road revealing more of the magnificent landscape. But today, the beauty felt tainted. Something was wrong in these woods, something that didn't belong. Weber's campsite sat in a small clearing, 20 yards from the lake's edge. Everything was exactly as Rachel had described, a blue tent, camping gear scattered about, a small stove with a coffee pot still sitting on it. The coffee inside was cold. Rowan pulled on latex gloves and began his examination. The scene felt wrong, but not in the way a crime scene usually did. There was no sign of struggle, no indication of panic. It was as if Thomas Weber had simply ceased to exist. Detective? One of the forensics techs called him over. You need to see this. On the ground, barely visible in the dirt, was a pattern. Hexagonal shapes, interconnected, pressed into the earth as if burned there. Rowan had seen something similar at each of the previous sites, but this was the clearest impression yet. He took photos with his phone, then stepped back to survey the entire scene. His mind, trained to find patterns in chaos, began making connections. The drone's hexagonal shape. The patterns in the dirt. The complete lack of evidence. Back at the station, Rowan added Thomas Weber's photo to his investigation board. 5 faces now stared back at him, their eyes seeming to ask why he hadn't figured it out yet. He began plotting the disappearances on a map, drawing lines between locations, measuring distances. A pattern emerged. The disappearances formed a perfect spiral, expanding outward from a central point deep in the Olympic National Forest. It wasn't random. Nothing about this was random. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The message contained only coordinates and 2 words, "Find me." Rowan checked the coordinates. They pointed to an abandoned research facility 20 miles into the forest. He stared at his phone, considering. Protocol dictated he call for backup, wait for a team. But protocol hadn't helped the 5 missing people on his board. He grabbed his jacket again, checked his weapon, and headed for the door. As he stepped outside, he heard it, a low, almost subsonic hum that seemed to vibrate in his bones. Looking up, he saw them. 3 black, hexagonal shapes hovering silently against the gray sky, watching. The game had changed. They weren't just observing anymore. They were inviting him in. Patterns in the dark. The abandoned research facility loomed before Rowan like a concrete tomb, its walls stained by decades of Pacific Northwest rain. His flashlight beam caught fragments of broken windows and rusted warning signs. The coordinates had led him here, but something felt off about the whole situation. Inside, his footsteps echoed through empty corridors. The facility had once belonged to Pacific Northwest Labs, a private research organization that shut down in the early 2000s. The air smelled of mold and decay, but underneath that was something else, a metallic tang that made his tongue tingle. "You shouldn't be here alone, Detective Pierce." The voice came from behind him. Rowan spun, hand moving to his weapon, but stopped when he saw the woman standing in the doorway. She was in her mid-40s, wearing a navy blazer over practical hiking boots, her silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Dr. Naomi Harrison," she said, holding up a Department of Energy ID. "I'm the one who sent you the coordinates." "Why the cloak and dagger routine?" Rowan kept his hand near his weapon. "Because what's happening here goes beyond local law enforcement. Beyond any single agency, really." She moved past him to a dust-covered control panel. "I've been tracking similar incidents across the country. The drones, the disappearances, the hexagonal patterns, they're all connected to electromagnetic anomalies I've been studying for the past 3 years." Rowan watched as she pulled out a tablet and brought up a series of graphs. "You're a physicist. Quantum mechanics, specifically." "I was working on quantum entanglement experiments when I first detected the anomalies. At first, I thought they were equipment malfunctions. Then I started correlating them with drone sightings." She showed him the graphs, spikes of activity that perfectly matched the timeline of disappearances in his case files. "The drones aren't just observing, Detective. They're searching for something. Or someone." A distant hum made them both look up. Through the broken windows, they could see 3 drones hovering in formation, their black surfaces seeming to absorb what little light remained in the day. "They're not military," Naomi said quietly. "The technology is far beyond anything currently possible. The way they move, the energy signatures they emit, it's like nothing we've ever seen." "Then what are they?" Before she could answer, one of the drones descended, stopping just outside the window. A beam of blue-white light emerged from its center, scanning the room. Rowan and Naomi pressed themselves against the wall, but not before the beam passed over them. The drone emitted a high-pitched tone that made Rowan's teeth ache. The other drones responded, their hum deepening, and then all 3 disappeared with a flash that left afterimages dancing in Rowan's vision. "They know we're here now," Naomi said, already moving toward her equipment. "We need to set up monitoring stations. If we can track their energy signatures, we might be able to predict where they'll appear next." Over the next few hours, they transformed a section of the facility into a makeshift command center. Naomi's equipment, an array of sensors and computers she'd brought in her SUV, filled one room. Rowan's case files and maps covered another wall, the spiral pattern of disappearances now overlaid with Naomi's electromagnetic readings. "Look at this," Naomi called him over to her computer. Each drone appearance corresponds with a specific frequency of quantum fluctuation. It's like they're folding space somehow. Creating temporary bridges between points. Bridges to where? That's the question, isn't it? She typed rapidly, bringing up more data. "The energy signatures suggest they're not just moving through our space. They might be moving between dimensions." Rowan thought about the missing people, about Thomas Weber's abandoned campsite. "Are you saying these things are taking people to another dimension?" "I'm saying we need to consider possibilities beyond our current understanding of physics." She paused, looking at him seriously. "There's something else. The patterns we found at the disappearance sites. They're not burns or impressions. They're quantum signatures, like scars in the fabric of space-time." A crackle of static made them both jump. One of Naomi's sensors was going crazy, its reading spiking off the charts. The metallic taste in the air intensified. "They're coming back," Naomi whispered. The air seemed to thicken, becoming heavy and charged. Through the windows, they could see more drones appearing, not 3 this time, but dozens, their black forms blotting out the stars like an artificial constellation. Rowan's phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number, different from before: "The bridge is opening. Be ready." The drones began to move, arranging themselves in a massive hexagonal pattern above the facility. The hum grew louder, deeper, until it resonated in their bones. Light began to dance between the drones, forming lines of energy that connected them like a giant circuit board in the sky. "Detective," Naomi's voice was tense. "Whatever's happening, it's bigger than just missing persons now. Those energy readings, they're creating something up there." A door. The light show intensified, the hexagonal pattern now clearly visible as some kind of portal or gateway. Through it, they could see something. Stars, but not in any configuration Rowan recognized. And shapes moving against those alien stars, massive forms that defied description. "Dr. Harrison," Rowan said quietly, "I think we're about to find out where those missing people went." The portal pulsed, sending waves of energy washing over the facility. Papers scattered, equipment sparked, and in the distance, they could hear the wail of emergency sirens. Something was coming through, and they were the only ones who knew what was really happening. The hidden truth. The military arrived before dawn. Black helicopters and armored vehicles surrounded the facility, their presence both reassuring and somehow threatening. Commander Marcus Torres stepped out of the lead vehicle, his weathered face illuminated by the harsh portable lights his team had set up around the perimeter. "Detective Pierce, Dr. Harrison," he nodded to them. "I understand you've had quite a night." Rowan studied the commander. Despite his formal military bearing, there was something unusual about him, a tension in his shoulders, a wariness in his eyes that suggested he'd seen things that defied explanation. "The portal," Naomi said, cutting straight to the point. "You knew about it, didn't you?" Torres's expression didn't change, but his silence was answer enough. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. We've been tracking these incidents for the past decade. The drones, the disappearances, they're part of something much larger." He led them to a mobile command center, where screens displayed real-time satellite imagery of similar portal formations across the globe. "They're not random," he explained. "These beings, we call them the observers, they're studying us. The drones are their probes, collecting data on human consciousness." "The missing people," Rowan said, thinking of Thomas Weber's empty campsite. "Are they dead?" "No," Torres pulled up another screen showing complex biorhythm data. "They're being interviewed. The observers exist in a different dimensional plane. They can't interact with us directly, so they use the drones to facilitate communication." Naomi leaned forward, studying the data. "These energy signatures, they're quantum consciousness transfers. They're not taking people's bodies, they're temporarily extracting their consciousness." A technician burst into the command center. "Sir, we've got another formation building. Multiple drones, same pattern as before." Outside, the sky had turned into a canvas of impossible geometry. Dozens of drones moved in perfect synchronization, their black surfaces reflecting the emergency lights below. The portal began to form again, but this time something was different. "They're trying to communicate," Naomi whispered, her instruments recording massive energy spikes. "The pattern, it's a language." The air crackled with electricity as a figure emerged from the portal. It wasn't physical in any conventional sense, more like a shifting pattern of light and shadow that somehow held a form. The being moved with fluid grace, its presence making reality itself seem to bend. "I am Sentinel," a voice resonated in their minds. "We have been observing your species for millennia, waiting for the right moment of development. Torres stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm before forcing it away. Why now? Why reveal yourselves? Your species stands at a crossroads, the being's thoughts flowed into their consciousness. The technology you call quantum computing, it is the first step toward understanding the true nature of reality. The disappearances were necessary to evaluate your readiness. Rowan thought of the missing people, of their families waiting for answers. Are they safe? Will they return? They have been returned. Time flows differently in our realm. What seems like weeks to you was merely moments for them. They were chosen for their unique neural patterns, minds capable of comprehending our existence. Naomi's instruments were recording everything, her screens filling with data that would take years to analyze. The hexagonal patterns, they're not just signatures, are they? They're keys to understanding your dimensional mathematics. Correct, Dr. Harrison. Your understanding of quantum mechanics brings you closer to comprehending our nature. The drones are not machines as you understand them, but extensions of our consciousness, bridges between our realms. A new alarm sounded from the command center. More portals were opening around the globe, each one a window into the observer's realm. The night sky was alive with their presence, a display of power and technology that defied human understanding. We offer you a choice, Sentinel continued. Cooperation or isolation. Your species has reached a point where contact can no longer be avoided. The question is whether you are ready to accept the responsibilities that come with this knowledge. Torres looked at Rowan and Naomi, then back at the luminescent being. What kind of responsibilities? There are others out there, Commander. Species and entities that would view your world as a resource to be exploited. We offer protection, guidance, but only if humanity can prove itself worthy of trust. The implications were staggering. Not only were they not alone in the universe, but they were being offered membership in some sort of cosmic alliance. The missing people hadn't been victims, they'd been test subjects, evaluated for humanity's potential. The hexagonal patterns, Rowan said suddenly, understanding dawning. They're not just mathematics. They're a signature, your signature. You were marking the places where you made contact, leaving bread crumbs for us to follow. Your insight serves you well, Detective Pierce. The patterns are indeed both message and method, a key to understanding the fundamental structure of reality itself. As dawn approached, the portals began to close one by one. The drones remained, hovering silently, their presence now a reminder of humanity's new reality. Nothing would ever be the same after this night. Breaking point. 3 months after first contact, the world teetered on the edge of chaos. Rowan stood in the underground command center beneath the Pentagon, watching as red dots multiplied across the global monitoring system. Each dot represented a portal opening, a new incursion by beings that weren't all as diplomatic as the observers. 14 more breaches in the last hour, Dr. Harrison announced, her voice tight with exhaustion. She hadn't slept in days, none of them had. The observer's warning was right, other entities are trying to take advantage of our dimensional awareness. Commander Torres entered the room, followed by a holographic projection of Sentinel. The observer's form shimmed with anxiety, an emotion they'd learned to recognize over the past months. The harvester's approach, Sentinel's thoughts echoed in their minds. They seek to exploit your quantum potential. The protection we offer requires a decisive response from your species. Rowan studied the tactical display. The new incursions formed a pattern different from the observer's hexagons, aggressive, sharp-angled triangles that spoke of military precision. The harvester's drones were different too, blood-red machines that moved like predators, leaving destruction in their wake. We've lost contact with Mumbai, a technician reported. The entire city's gone dark. Not dark, Naomi corrected, checking her readings. The quantum signature suggests they've been placed in some kind of stasis field. The harvesters are preserving them for processing. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. They'd seen what processing meant, entire populations reduced to quantum energy, their consciousness harvested like crops. The observers had shown them recordings from other worlds that had fallen to the harvesters. "We need to implement the shield protocol," Torres said, turning to Sentinel. "Will it work?" The observer's form pulsed with uncertainty. "The technology we provided is untested on this scale. Attempting to create a planetary quantum barrier could have unforeseen consequences." "Better than becoming a quantum battery farm," Rowan muttered. He thought of the missing people from his original investigation. Their experience with the observers had prepared humanity for this moment, but at what cost? Naomi's fingers flew across her control panel. "The quantum network is ready. We've linked every major particle accelerator and quantum computer on the planet. If we're going to do this, it has to be now." The decision wasn't theirs to make. On screens around the room, they watched as world leaders debated humanity's future. The president's face appeared on the main display, her expression grim but determined. "Implement the shield," she ordered. "God help us all." Naomi initiated the sequence. Around the globe, massive quantum generators spun up to full power. The technology gifted by the observers merged with human innovation, creating something entirely new. Energy coursed through the planetary grid they'd spent months building. The effect was immediate and spectacular. A shimmering barrier of quantum energy began to form in the upper atmosphere, its hexagonal pattern a mirror of the observer's original signatures. The harvesters' portals began to collapse, their red drones falling from the sky like metallic rain. But something was wrong. The barrier wasn't just blocking hostile incursions, it was changing the fundamental structure of Earth's spacetime. Reality itself seemed to flex and warp. "The quantum resonance is cascading." Naomi shouted over alarms that had begun blaring throughout the facility. "The barrier isn't just protecting us, it's evolving." Sentinel's form became more distinct, more present. "This is unexpected. Your species' quantum potential, it's far greater than we anticipated. The barrier isn't just a shield, it's becoming a bridge." The screens showed impossible images, cities around the world beginning to shift and change, buildings taking on geometric patterns that defied Euclidean geometry. People reported strange abilities, flashes of telepathy, moments of quantum displacement, consciousness expanding beyond normal human limits. "We're not just keeping them out," Rowan realized, watching as his own hand seemed to phase in and out of reality. "We're transcending." Torres gripped the command table, his knuckles white. "Can we control it?" "The process cannot be stopped," Sentinel communicated, a note of awe in its mental voice. "Your species has achieved in moments what took us millennia. The quantum awakening has begun." Above them, through layers of concrete and earth, they could feel the barrier continuing to transform. The harvesters fled, their portals closing in rapid succession. But humanity's victory came with a price. They were changing, becoming something new, something that even the observers hadn't predicted. Dawn of understanding. 1 year later, Rowan stood at the observation deck of the Global Quantum Council headquarters in Geneva, watching humanity's new reality unfold. The city below had transformed, like all Earth's major population centers, into a harmonious blend of physical and quantum architecture. Crystalline structures pulsed with consciousness-driven energy, while citizens phased effortlessly between dimensional states. "Still getting used to it?" Dr. Harrison appeared beside him, her form slightly translucent as she shifted between quantum states, a new normal for their transformed species. "Some days are easier than others," Rowan admitted, watching as a group of children played in the park below, their laughter creating ripples in the quantum field that manifested as beautiful geometric patterns in the air. The shield protocol had done more than protect Earth from the harvesters. It had triggered what scientists now called the quantum evolution, a fundamental change in human consciousness and capability. Humanity had become a hybrid species, existing simultaneously in physical reality and quantum space. Commander Torres joined them, his military uniform now incorporating shifting patterns that indicated his new role as liaison between Earth and the galactic community. The Observers' Council is ready for our report. They made their way to the quantum chamber, a space that existed partially in normal reality and partially in the higher dimensions where the observers naturally resided. Sentinel was there, along with a dozen other observer representatives, their forms now much clearer to human perception. Humanity's progress exceeds all projections, Sentinel began, its thoughts carrying a warmth that would have been impossible to detect a year ago. You have not only survived the transformation but thrived in ways we never imagined possible. Naomi stepped forward, her quantum signature pulsing with pride. We've established quantum learning centers on every continent. Children born after the transformation show even greater capabilities than the first generation of enhanced humans. We're evolving faster than anyone predicted. And the harvesters? One of the other observers inquired. Haven't been seen since the shield went up, Torres reported. Our new defensive capabilities seem to have convinced them to seek easier targets. Though now we're working to protect those targets too. Rowan thought about how far they'd come. The mysterious drones that had once caused such fear were now understood as simple tools, like a child's first alphabet blocks. Humanity had learned to create their own quantum constructs, far more sophisticated than the original probes. There is another matter to discuss, Sentinel announced. The anomaly you discovered in the quantum field. Rowan tensed. 3 weeks ago, their monitoring systems had detected something vast moving through higher dimensional space, something that made even the observers nervous. We've been analyzing the signal, Naomi brought up a holographic display showing complex quantum wavelengths. It's not like anything we've seen before. Not harvester, not observer, not even human. It is why we chose your species, Sentinel revealed. We detected the same signal millennia ago. We knew that whoever could successfully navigate the quantum evolution would need to face it. We didn't create your potential, we merely helped you unlock it in time. The implications were staggering. The observers hadn't been testing humanity, they'd been preparing them. Everything, the drones, the disappearances, the quantum transformation, had been preparation for something bigger. What is it? Rowan asked, though part of him already knew the answer. The source, Sentinel's form pulsed with ancient knowledge. The origin point of consciousness itself. It's awakening, and it's curious about what its children have become. The quantum field rippled with the weight of this revelation. Humanity hadn't just joined a galactic community, they'd become key players in a cosmic drama that had been unfolding since the beginning of consciousness itself. So what happens now? Torres asked, his military pragmatism asserting itself even in the face of such profound implications. Now, Sentinel responded, we face it together. Observers, humans, and perhaps others, united in understanding what we truly are. Rowan looked out at the transformed Earth through the quantum field's lens. The hexagonal patterns that had once seemed so alien were now part of humanity's own structure, a symbol of how far they'd come. The mysterious drones that had started it all were now museum pieces, reminders of humanity's first stumbling steps into a larger reality. We're ready, he said, and felt the truth of it in every quantum-enhanced cell of his being. The disappearances he'd investigated in that small town now seemed like ripples preceding a tidal wave, the first hints of a transformation that had changed not just humanity, but their understanding of existence itself. Above them, the quantum barrier shimmered with newfound purpose, no longer just a shield but a beacon, signaling humanity's readiness to face whatever lay ahead. The drones had been just the beginning, the real journey was just getting started.